We are recording the interview of Daniel Lopez. This interview is being conducted by David Berry from the Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. It is 3 p.m. on October 12th, 2017. So why don't we start with where and when were you born?
May 1st, 1979. Born in Bayshore, New York, Long Island.
And then who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My mom, Maria C. Lopez, and my dad, Edgar Lopez. My mom stayed at home. She took care of my sister and I. And my dad was a supervisor at a bakery called Entenmann's, a really big bakery in town, pretty much employed the whole neighborhood. And, so, pretty small, quaint.
That's good. I bet everyone knew, I bet he was a good person to see getting the food and...
Oh, definitely. And then the bakery was right by my high school. And so we'd go to school in the morning and all you do is smell fresh cookies, fresh donuts, and like...
So was it normally like dessert, or was there bread, or?
Towards the end of their reign, they would make breads and different stuff like that. But then I think probably about maybe 8 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't know. Time escapes me now. I'm getting older.
Yeah.
But the bakery had closed, but my dad had already retired from there. So, but now the smell is gone.
The smell of bread or fresh baked bread is the best smell for me.
Yes, definitely.
What about any siblings?
I have a sister, Mary.
And then was any of your other family members, or were any of your family members in the military?
I had some uncles that were in the military. My mother's brother, my uncle Mike, he was a Marine, and her other brother, Wilford, he was in the Navy. And then some maybe second cousins and stuff like that, but not really close to the family.
Yeah. Were you close to your uncles at all?
Well, they were always gone.
No.
So my uncle Wilford, he did come home from the Navy. He had actually become an amputee. He was in a motorcycle accident. So with him, I became pretty close, and I was actually living with him when I joined the military when I was living in Florida. So.
Yeah, I'm a big motorcycle rider myself. That's one of the. Did he ever get back on one afterwards?
No, I watched that man. He is probably one of the hardest men I've ever known. He'd be out there one leg, chopping wood, taking care of the house and stuff like that. Hard as nails. I watched that man have a tear come out of his eye when he had I want to say it was I'm not a big bike guy, but I think it was a Triumph motorcycle. We were in Florida. I just got rid of it one day, and that.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
I was I remember not even wanting to talk to him on the way home. Like, oh, he just got rid of his baby. So.
So what were you doing before the military?
I basically joined the military right out of high school. I wasn't doing very good. I wasn't a good kid.
Oh,
I put a lot of stress on my parents.
A lot of late night phone calls from Boys in Blue, or?
Yeah. I got in a lot of trouble. Gangs, this, that, and the other. It was just going down the wrong path.
Now, was this up in New York?
Yes, I was still in Long Island at the time, in Brentwood, New York, and wasn't doing too well. I had graduated high school.
No, that's good.
But barely, and so parents thought I needed to change, so they called my Uncle Wilford, the hard-nosed guy, who was an amputee, and I ended up going to live with him in Jacksonville, Florida, and I worked in a sub shop for maybe 2 months before I was like, this working thing sucks.
All right.
So I watched this is back in '97. I watched the recruiters put up a big banner, and it was right across the street from where I was working at Firehouse Subs in Jacksonville, and I watched them put up this big banner, $12,000 signing bonus, and I sat there and I worked there for 2 months, staring at that banner at the cash register, and I just hated my $80 to $120 check, making $5-6 an hour. It's just
Which branch of the military was that banner?
it was Army, definitely. And I probably by the time the 2 months that I worked there, I probably had about 2 dozen of the recruiter's cards. Every time he came in, he handed me a card. And I finally walked over there and I took the pre-ASVAB. He's like, "Oh, you're good." I was a recruiter's dream. I walked in and said, "I want to leave." Walked in, signed up. Went in probably 2-3 days later, after I pre-test, ASVAB'd out, 111. Still chose infantry. I didn't understand at the time what a 111 meant, but I do
pretty
now.
good.
So still chose infantry, and then shipped out. And ended up on Halloween. Ended up on Sand Hill.
So, which uncle were you in? Was he the Marine or was he the Navy?
He was a Navy guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So other than seeing the big, so you joined the Army, correct?
Yes.
All right. So other than seeing the big banner and kind of seeing the $12,000 signing bonus, was your uncle supportive in having you join, or?
No, not really. No, not really. I eloped with the Army. I just got up, walked into the office, and then I came home and I said, "Hey, I took my pre-ASVAB," and he knew what that was. My aunt knew what it was, and they're like, "Okay." I'm like, "Yeah, I go in tomorrow to go look at what kind of jobs I can get and stuff like that," and they're like, "Okay," a little hesitant. But I had zero discipline. I had zero control of my mouth. Zero control of any of my emotions. So they were like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I came back that night with a contract. And like, I'm leaving soon. I'm leaving like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was pretty much the same way when I walked in there. I was like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So, other than the banner, why the Army? Did you talk to any other branches or think about it, or was it just kind of always Army?
I had another uncle that I didn't really see until I joined the military. My Uncle Joe. He was transportation, and he was always in Germany, Korea. He was always gone, and he drove a BMW. He was the coolest dude since sliced bread. My uncle, the hard-nosed guy, tough as nails, Navy, really didn't have too much of an impact. He was kind of mean until I became an adult and understood, the tough love thing. And my other uncle, who was a Marine, he was always gone. He left New York and hardly ever came back. Every 4 or 5 years, he would come back for 2 or 3 days and then be gone for a couple of years. So my Uncle Joe was a big impact on the Army life. He was stationed in Brooklyn, New York for a while when I was really young. I would see him once in a while, and he was always doing well. He wasn't mean. He was just like a cool guy.
And he was the Marine, correct?
No, he was Army.
Okay, so there's a third.
There's a third one.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Joe Diaz. He was my mother's sister's husband. So kind of.
So he just kind of came up out of the woodwork after you joined, then, right?
We didn't talk very much until I joined the military, and then when I joined the military, as a first sergeant, he was like, "All right, hey, private, this is what you got to do. You got to make sure all the things you hear from your squad leaders and your platoon sergeant and stuff like that. You hear from them, but you don't want to hear from them.
Yeah.
But I respected this man. He was just like, hey, you got to make sure you have a good uniform, your boots are shine and stuff like that. You don't look like a polished turd. Make sure your stuff is squared away. And at that point, I started squaring my stuff away. So, and it's kind of hard to be messed up in the infantry.
Oh, wait, hard to be messed up in the infantry? I don't know.
'Cause,
For us, it was either you were dumb and strong or you were smart and.
exactly. So I was probably 120 pounds, so I wasn't going to get any stronger. So I had to get smarter.
Yeah. So before we really get into what you're doing while you're in the military, uh, how did your family feel? I mean, you kind of said you eloped.
Yeah.
When you told your mom or your dad that you were going in, were they excited for you or nervous?
Very nervous. Um, there's one thing my mother would always tell me when I was growing up as a kid. Um, graduate high school, you're going to get a job, you're going to go to college, or you're going to join the military. I can't help you pay for college because we don't make squat. So you're going to have to pay for your own college or find a way to get a scholarship or something like that. Go to work, join the military, and then let the military pay for college. So when I graduated high school and I got sent down to Florida, working for, I don't remember what minimum wage was back then in 97, but it wasn't much. I remember my checks being like $80. So I was like, well, I don't expect to pay for college with this. So the military was the way to go.
And then why infantry?
Um,
Something with your ASVAB score, you probably had a pick of a lot of different jobs.
my bonus, I got air assault school right off the bat. Air assault school right off the bat. I got picked Fort Drum, which is upstate New York. Didn't know how far upstate it was. That's how naive I was. 30 miles away from the Canadian border.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, you'll be back home every weekend. You'll be just like you were a civilian. Yeah, right. It takes more time from Fort Drum to Long Island than it does for me in Williamsburg now to get to. It takes 8 hours from Fort Drum to my house in Long Island than it does from me in Virginia driving to New York. So, yeah. But and of course the bonus. I wanted that bonus.
Did they give it to you all at once or did they break it up?
It was broken up. I got half lump sum 1 year in, and then the next subsequent years, they broke up the other half over the next 3 years.
So, did your Uncle Joe, the Army First Sergeant, did he give you all that advice before you went to basic, or did he wait until after?
He waited till after, and he told me I was a dumbass with a 111 going to the infantry. And I think those were his exact words. He's like, you could have went anywhere. But I was hard-headed. I wanted money, and the infantry was kicking doors and, that adrenaline rush. And I was in pretty good shape. I wrestled, I played lacrosse, played handball. I was very physical, very active, and might as well put it to good use.
So, where did you do your basic at?
Sand Hill, Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
Echo 138, Rock of the Marne.
That's where I went to airborne school. So, how was that? Did you go during the winter or the summer? I know it still gets cold down there in the winter.
Yeah, I got there. Something happened. I left Florida. I wanted to go back to New York to go say bye to my family. So, in order for me to do that, they had to do some paperwork to get me to ship out of Brooklyn, New York. So my date had gotten delayed. So I officially signed in, did my second swearing on the 30th, but I didn't get to basic training until the 31st. So I literally got there on Halloween to the drill sergeant smoking. All these dudes, I guess because he had to work on Halloween, couldn't take his kids trick-or-treating or something, I don't know.
Oh.
I just remember getting off the bus at 30th AG and everybody was in the front lane arrest, and it was like, wow.
So, how was that? What did you think when you went from not really having too much experience with the military to getting full view of angry drill sergeant smoking privates?
What did I get myself into? And this wasn't a small guy. This was a cornbread fed big dude, so it's not like, I had a chip on my shoulder. I was
They seem to single out the short guys. They did me at least.
Definitely. So it wasn't just somebody that I could just look at and be like, oh, I'll smack you and walk away. No, I was like, this is a big dude, so you might want to listen to this guy. And of course, he's, being a civilian, getting there. This guy's trained too, so yeah, I might as well just, what did I get myself into? But 30th AG was probably the worst place to be before going to OSET. OSET is a continuous basic in AIT. There's no break in it.
Yeah.
So, and they don't care,
Did you have your same drill sergeant throughout the whole thing? So
yes, for the whole 20, however many weeks I was there.
And it is red phase, or at least for us, it was red phase from day one to pretty much day zero.
Yes.
The end of it.
We did get probably like 2 hours of 2 hours of like an actual man from the drill sergeant when we all got our blue cords. Like he actually like treated us like humans when we were. But then because I was 11 Charlie, we went for another 2 weeks after we did OSET basic AIT, and then we do another 2 weeks on top of that. So we do all the 11 Bravo training, and then we do another 2 weeks to become 11 Charlie. And so
the 11 Bravo, that's just normal infantry, right?
Yes,
and 11
normal
Charlie
infantry.
is
Yeah.
Mortarman.
Yes. And so become a Mortarman, we could do another 2 weeks, and we got about 4 hours of so we got to see our parents, do a blue cord ceremony, everybody's cool and stuff like that, and right back to drill sergeant a-hole, and you still got 2 more weeks with me, buddy. Let's go. Base plates and mortar tubes. Let's go. Come on. So that was fun.
So was there anything that kind of helped you out through basic? Something you kind of told yourself, or being physically fit before joining? Was probably a good thing for you.
Yeah, being semi-fit before basic was definitely a godsend. I just knew there was nothing for me at home. I'd end up doing something like my dad, working in the factory, or doing some other odd-end job, something like that, and, or without college, there's no way I was going to be able to, work in New York City or, to do anything spectacular. There's no way I was going to be able to get a college degree without sacrificing something. So the military was a way to go, so I can get that. Staying at home and trying to work and go to school. Some of my friends who did that, they're professional students now. This, here we are 20 years later after graduation. They're still doing college and stuff like that, and
Yeah, it's hard getting out of here.
Yeah. So, people like us, we kind of finish things. So, I don't think they've ever learned. Some of the civilians, my friends, they never learned how to finish something off. So, that was a big driving factor for me to succeed through basic training. After all, even after my injury, staying in the military as an amputee, stuff like that. I just knew there was nothing for me at home. So I had to make something. I had to make something happen.
So I don't want to assume anything, but kind of sound like you had a problem with authority before joining. Is that accurate?
Mildly put, yes.
Was that an issue for you while you're in? Did you ever want to backtalk the drill sergeant while he's in your face, or?
Oh man, I've had daydreams of smashing him with a chair. Because we had this one rule. He just liked to keep us on the go, and everyone had a turn being first and last on line. So we all stayed in the same order. So like the first person who ate breakfast would be the last person to eat lunch, and then it would kind of round robin. So the last person literally had 2 minutes to eat. So the last person from the platoon would come up and say, "Last man up," and then the whole cafeteria or the whole chow hall would say, 2 minutes. So it gave everybody else 2 minute warning. So if you were the last person, you said last man up, you literally had 2 minutes to eat your food, And I remember that one day I was starving. I was like, just trying to scarf it down. And he's like, you're not gonna eat your. We had. This is the psychological warfare they played on us. We had to grab the cake and the desserts, but we couldn't eat it. We had to put it on our tray.
Worse.
Yeah, we had to grab it and put it on our tray. Now, I being physically fit, I still always kind of still battled my weight, and I've always been a sweets kind of person. So it was really detrimental to me. Like I had to pick up this piece of cake and not eat it. It really hurt. So I remember he was just like, I'm throwing away my food, and it's practically all there. So I only had 2 minutes to eat, and I see you eyeballing that cake. I was just like, and at that time, I really was. I was eyeballing that cake. I looked pretty good, and I was just, and we had these big, thick, kind of wooden chairs to sit on. Like, I mean, the arms were really thick, and it kind of like went down like that. It's really heavy, kind of solid wood chairs that we sat on. Like it would break your back, kind of thing. I really wanted to hit him with that thing, but that day didn't let me have the cake. But yeah.
I remember it was never grab anything that you couldn't eat with a spoon because you didn't have time to cut it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Or swallow it and taste it later.
Do you still think about him sometimes?
Yes, I do. Whenever I see a piece of cake like that.
So, did you choose 11 Charlie infantryman, or I'm sorry, Mortarman, before you went to basic, or did that kind of get assigned to you while you were in?
That was assigned to me. I went in as 11 X-ray. 11 X-ray is 11 whatever they want you to be. Mm. So when I got there, they were like, "Well, we need Charlies." I could have ended up being a hotel, Bravo, or hotel, Bravo, Charlie, and there was another one.
I've never heard of 11 Hotel.
And they phased those out. Those are the tanker guys.
Okay. Now they're 19 kilos.
Yeah, they would do tow missiles and stuff like that, dragons.
No, okay.
So they would carry those things around. They were the anti-tank guys that would.
Oh, anti-tank. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. Now they just hand a dragon to anybody, you know.
Yeah, I mean they gave me a tow missile. I was like, how much is this?
You know, so yeah, it's pretty cool though.
So how did you feel about being? Did it bother you at all being a Charlie instead of a Bravo, or?
Yeah, it did. That really bothered me. I really wanted to be a Bravo, and then only being 5'4", 120 pounds soaking wet, carrying this huge base plate, or an 81 millimeter mortar tube, which is this long, the same height as me, and trying to walk through the jungle of Panama. I was really questioning why they put me as 11 Charlie. Like, did somebody not look at the folder saying, you know, the mortar tube's bigger than I am? But I had fun though. I loved it. You know, as much as we complain about our service, is that deep rooted love for it. You know.
And then you said you got aerosol before you joined, right? That was part of it.
Yeah, it was part of my contract. Yeah.
And then tell me about that.
Aerosol school was I guess it was the gentleman's course. I went in for drum. Well, I first got to Fort Drum, and they were like, "All right, don't even unpack. We're leaving." We had the unit that I went to had already triple deuce. We already had orders to go to Bosnia, so I didn't even get to unpack. Pretty much, so maybe I got there in February, March. By May, we were gone. And then while we were in Bosnia, we went a couple other places, and we were in Tuzla, Bosnia. And then when I came home almost around my 1 year anniversary, right beforehand. So around Halloween, come home. January, we were in Panama, doing jungle operations training in Fort Sherman. And then after all of that goes on, then they're like, "Oh wait, Lopez, I was over my 1 year. I was supposed to get air assault before my 1 year
And normally
mark.
they send you after basic before
Yeah,
you get to your unit.
yeah. So I didn't go to air assault until about a year later, a little over a year, and I was a little salty about that, but
You're a little seasoned though before you went there, so you
yeah.
probably had a better, easier time than the guys who just got out of basic.
Well, the air assault school in Fort Drum wasn't like how airborne school is at Fort Benning and stuff like that, where you got all the AIT guys going through and stuff like that, or all the Rangers, going at a basic AIT, going to airborne before they go to their units, where they're totally green. The air assault school in Fort Drum is it's
More specialized, or
nah, it's like they they're pulling people from other units and stuff like that. Like, so, we had a lot of course, 10 Mountain were light, and we had our own helicopter division there, or flight deck, or whatever they call it. So we did a lot of air assault missions there and stuff like that. So a lot of people from just even Pogues and stuff like that were going to air assault. A lot of seasons there wasn't too many brand new people there. So I remember being in there with a couple warrant officers and a couple E5s, E6s that just got to Fort Drum, and they're in a unit that worked with helicopters, and they ended up going to air assault school.
so how did that feel, repelling out of helicopters? I mean, I know I'd be like looking down at the ground like, do not let go.
It was around the time the book Black Hawk Down came out.
Oh.
And all I remember, well, the movie wasn't even out yet, but the book had come out, and all I can remember is just reading that book, and then I'm going to air assault school and looking down like, oh man, this is gonna suck if I fall. But of course, we were rappelling that fast, roping down. So, but it was amazing. Just to get out of a helicopter, just jump out, rappel down, and get to do what you see in the movies. What guys fast roping or rappelling onto a building, SWAT teams and stuff like that. It was probably one of the highlights of my career. Doing
Was
stuff
that like
that.
when you was that one of your first times really getting involved in a helicopter? And...
Yes, definitely. Probably when I was in Bosnia, we did a couple. We did a couple things in Bosnia when we went. We did some training and did some live fire exercises, and so we had to fly, and we would fly to different places, depending on where we were at. What the mission was. We went to Turkish brigade, went to a Russian brigade, do some what do you call it?
Cross training.
Yeah, kind of cross training, like foreign affairs, kind of diplomacy kind of thing. Meshing the multi units, because we were at that point we were there under NATO, so there was a bunch of different countries there. So we were doing training. And
yeah, being over in Germany, we got to train with all types of...
Yeah.
That really angered me because they didn't really adhere to our level of discipline, or they'd be out in the firing line with a keg of beer, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah. When I trained with the British, it was kind of like that. The British and the British Army has, I guess they're from Fiji. So they're like kind of like Samoan in a like in the way their attributes, the way they look, big, burly kind of. We were doing a mandatory fun day with the British soldiers, and so they're teaching us how to play cricket, and we're teaching them how to play baseball. And then one of their maybe Fiji, Samoan, I don't know what. All I know is this big brown dude just comes streaking through, like as if he was at a European football game, just streaking right through the field. And all the British guys and all their foreign attaché they had attached to them. Oh no, they were all dying. Our commanders were like, and an uproar. So yeah, I get you on that. Their level of discipline is way lax compared to ours.
Yeah.
Like people get kicked out for stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's doing it for fun in front of his own command in a foreign country. So yeah, I get that.
So was it pretty much just training that you were doing in Bosnia and Panama?
We were at Tuzla, Bosnia. We were the only infantry unit there. We were the security forces. We were the QRF, Quick Reactionary Force.
So this was a deployment for you?
Yes, right out the gate. As soon as I got out, I'm shooting emails to friends and stuff like that. They're over in Fort Riley, Kansas. They're over in Washington. Some stayed in Fort Benning. They're all shooting emails back and forth to each other. They're all talking about the bars that they go into and hanging out and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah. We come in and there's no war, but guess what? I'm in Bosnia. They're shooting. It sucks. But it paid off so that when Iraq and Afghanistan kicked off, I was already kind of not seasoned like how we would mention our seasoned soldiers now who are spending years, but I had already had a taste of the chaotic mess that can happen when you're on a deployment in a foreign country. So it kind of helped me out being an E5 at the time, and the war was just kicking off, and so it wasn't totally new.
So did you guys have to utilize your QRF or your quick reaction force, or was it more just kind of you were there for security?
We were there for a security force. There was a couple of times we had to utilize it. Car bombings, Muslims and Croatians, and Muslims, Croats. I mean, they were just ruthless to each other. So we were kind of like the big brother, like trying to stand in between them and keep them at bay.
And this was before 9/11, right?
Way before 9/11. This is 1998.
So then, how long did you spend there?
We spent about 6 months there.
And then you went straight from Bosnia to Panama, right?
We came home. Came home from Bosnia. By the time all the connexes were unpacked and stuff like that, we were repacking our connexes to go back. So we came home around Halloween. I remember being home Halloween after Bosnia and bringing some friends with me to New York City to go see the parade. Wow, that was amazing. And then, we got some time off, our block leave, 2 weeks, and then came back, unpack, get all our gear, DX all our stuff, and then ramp up to go to Panama for jungle ops training. So we came back Halloween, Thanksgiving came, Christmas came. Right after Christmas, literally, I want to say like January 3rd, we were on a flight out of Fort Drum going into Panama. So.
Was it good training? Did it benefit you, or were you kind of like, why are we here doing jungle training?
Actually, back then, our threat wasn't in the desert, like how some of the younger guys now, have clearly seen. Me as a kid growing up, in the 90s.
I think more the Vietnam.
Yeah, the Vietnam thing was my older generation where I saw. Of course, I saw the Desert Storm and stuff like that, but we all know how long that lasted. So it was just like, it never dawned on me as that we'd be back in the desert. So doing jungle ops and stuff like that was just something that we did, and that's where our threat was, not in the desert. And then soon after 9/11 happened, now everybody's going to NTC, going into a sandbox over there to train before they go over to Afghanistan or Iraq. So that was like the NTC, I guess, for us older guys who came in, who would go through jungle ops and stuff like that.
And how long did that training last?
30 days.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't that bad.
So then what about when you got back did you guys finally stop rotating to foreign countries for a little bit.
Yeah, we came back from Panama, and it was a huge ice storm. And then, of course, being infantry or any type of combat arms, when there's nothing to fight, we become green thumbs. We start beautifying the whole base.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
flipping rocks because they're too tan on one side.
yeah, exactly. You know, I actually got in trouble and had to I used to do graffiti and stuff like that when I was a kid, and we had this on our wall. We had this mural. It had three cards, triple deuce, and something had happened, or they were repainting or washing the wall or something like that, and the three cards had gotten affected. So my first one was just like, "Hey, Mr. Graffiti Man, go fix the triple deuce." I mean, they just came up with busy work for us for a while. Unless we were out there training, we were cleaning.
Was it pretty much that way up until 9/11?
No, not really. I did. We kept busy. Tough Mountain, we kept pretty busy. We did rotations over at West Point where we would go in the summer, and we would train the cadets. And of course, it was a big conglomerate of people. Of course, we were just a small pie of the infantry. I'm not too sure if it's a second year that they get to see all the aspects of the military. So come at the end of their second year, they pick a branch. They put in their wish list. Oh, I want to go combat arms, or I want to go infantry, or I want to go engineering, or I want to go, I don't know, whatever thing they pick. So we had like a whole big round robin set up. So they'd come to see mortars, and then they would go see the Bravos, and then they would go see field artillery. They would see the Fisters from field artillery. They would see all these things in action. And then it was a whole, almost all summer, we'd spend out there with them. And then we'd have this huge FTX at the end where they're able to call for fire. They're able to get, helicopter to come pick up, 9-line medevac, things second lieutenant needs to know before he gets out there.
And you were an E5 during this time?
At the time, no, I was E3, E4.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, Tough Mountain, we kept moving, and it was just bang, 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 bang.
Were you assigned to a specific gun for that training, like the 120 or 60 or?
I was 60 millimeter at that time. Thank goodness.
I mean, were you the dialer in, or were you hanging rounds, or?
No, I was a gunner. I was dialing everything in on our azimuths and stuff like that. Diddle, far pole in the middle. I'll never forget that. It's, we have two poles that we line up for to line up we shoot an azimuth, and then we point our gun at that, and then we use that as a focal point for the map to fire our rounds anywhere else, so that we can have direct hits. And so whenever you move the gun and then you move the sight back, the poles are going to be different. So as long as you use one hair from your trigger when it's looking through the scope, and you use a pole over here, and then you use the far one in the middle, and that. I don't know exactly how the science works, but I know the rounds went where they were supposed to go and exactly where they needed to go. So, hey, diddle, far pole in the middle. I'll never forget it.
I remember calling in for fire, and then whenever we got the fire for effect, once we got it on target, I can just imagine you guys just there with there, lobbing rounds in there as fast as you can.
Actually, we have two guns. Number 2 gun is the best gun. Number 1 gun it seems sort of backwards, but that's the way it is. I'm usually sitting there while somebody's hanging rounds. There's a level for one of the legs that goes up and down like this, and there's a level that goes up and down like that. And then we have these little, like on your what is it called? Yeah, on your level, when you try to level something, that little glass with the bubble in it,
Mm-hmm.
we have a thing, and it has 2 lines in it. And we got to make sure the bubble's on this side for horizontal and vertical are online, and we got the far pole in the middle while we're dropping rounds. So it's dropping rounds, and it's sinking everything into the ground. Doom, doom, doom. So I have to constantly move everything while somebody's dropping rounds, and this thing is moving, and then poof, poof in my
you're
ear.
hearing now.
So it's pretty intense when we get a fire for effect. And then of course bigger guns. It's just a 60 is very like little movements like this literally, and then with the bigger guns, you're talking about movements, and then the 120 you got cranks to move everything. So that's pretty cool though. I had fun doing that.
I could imagine the guys humping those 120s. I mean, especially because you got one side that's so much heavier than the other side.
Well, the 120 gets mounted to there's a mount for it, and it gets drugged behind a Humvee, and then they'll take the Humvee to as close as they can go, and then they'll hump it, maybe up a hill so they can get a clear top. But they're not humping it like the 81s and the 60s and the 81s. Yeah, you walking out the door with that thing. You're walking with it all day, and then you're bringing it back, and there's no one's gonna save you. So, the 120s is I think that round is like 35 pounds, 25 pounds, and they used to torture us with that. Have you ever seen them hang mortar rounds before?
Yeah, they let me hang a few. I was out driving my commander around, and we went to go visit the Mortarman, and they were like, "Hey, you want to hang some rounds?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, I want to hang rounds."
So when they tell you to hang it, you put it in halfway,
and then
you slide down. So when we would mess with the lieutenants, and we tell them to hang it. So you can't drop it until we're trying to time our rounds. No, we're not. We just wanted them to hold around out there like this for as long as they possibly could, and watch them shake. And like literally, I mean, like even a 60 round is only 7 pounds.
I mean, outstretched like that, it's still a workout.
Outstretched, yeah, holding 7 pounds like that. And we're like, hold on.
Did you guys have to add those little charges at the bottom? The little.
Yeah, we call them cheese charges. Yeah.
And that affected how much force it left, right, or how far it would go, or.
Yeah. So a mortar round has a ring in the middle of it. It's kind of split in two pieces. So you have the actual the HE part, and then in the middle of it actually has a plastic ring, and then your cheese charges are down here, and then you have your primer. So when it slides through the tube, it fits so snug. It slides down, and then it hits, and then those charges are made of like nitroglycerin. They ignite. Now that ring that's in the middle, it expands with the heat. It expands and it creates a pressure. So if you have more charges, the more pressure is underneath, sending the round farther out. So it's actually a pretty good bit of science. I had to teach that class for the West Point guys, so I still remember that.
I know when I was a private and dealing with officers, it was really hard because, well, maybe it's a little different at West Point because they're not really an officer yet.
Yeah.
Did you have any problems with that, or did they respect and listen to you as if you were?
They were very respectful. We had some cocky guys, and we definitely had something for them. Because at the end of every week we did a small FTX, and then at the end of the summer we did a big FTX. Being a graffiti guy, I don't know if you ever seen, but there's these big permanent markers where the actual writing part is just like really thick, like that big. So we would go get those, and we would do silent kills on the cadets that we thought are.
Oh, use it for a knife.
And then they would have to, and this would be on a weekend. So they have to show up Monday morning with this big permanent marker thing across it, and you just see their necks all red from trying to scrub it off, and it wouldn't come off. Because, we did it on a Friday night, Saturday, or whatever the case may be. Then it's sitting in there all for the rest of the weekend. And then come Monday morning where they got to get dressed and go to class and stuff, it's still there on their neck.
Sounds like some swift justice there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So, what about after the training, the cadets at West Point? What did you do next?
After training cadets at West Point, so that was probably 99, 2000. At that point, I had gotten married, had 2 kids, um, and then I had reclassed. I had reclassed and came down to Virginia and working on the boats.
So you reclassed from Mortarman to mechanic?
Yeah. While I was in Panama, I got to work on these things called mite boats. Have you ever looked at the boats in the beginning of Saving Private Ryan? The landing crafts?
Oh, the ones where they just roll up and they pretty much...
They drop the ramp?
Yeah.
Yeah, I drove those.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't know the Army had those.
Yeah, still do. And I remember being in Panama talking to these guys on boats and stuff like that. I mean, they were like modern day pirates. I mean, now they're a lot more disciplined, but when I got there, they were literally modern day pirates. We wore flip flops. We wore a baseball cap that had the boat name on it, like the Navy does. We had a boat hat, a boat shirt, PT shorts, flip flops, and if we were working, we wore steel toe boots. That was our uniform. And if any officers came, we put on coveralls. And I heard they got sea pay and like the Navy did and stuff like that. And then I ended up in Puerto Rico.
Before we get into that, why did you reclass from Mortarman to mechanic?
I'd gotten married. Had a kid on the way. Actually, no, my son was born. My oldest son was born, and I mean, the infantry, we were just gone all the time, just gone. And so I was like, well, I wanted to stay in. I knew going home wasn't an option. And then there was no war. And then being a glorified security guard with the infantry, I was like, oh, let me see if I can get another job. So then I went to the boats, and that was pretty fun.
Sure, a lot less stressful.
We deployed more actually, because their saying is nothing happens till something moves. So transportation leaves before the infantry does, because guess who brings the infantry to the battlefield? Transportation. So we got to be ready before the infantry guys are ready. So I was like, what did I get myself into again? Insert foot now. But yeah, it was a little less stressful. Bullets not whizzing by your head. The training was not what you would get in the infantry. It's not. It was like more of a check a box than you're not doing it right. But then 9/11 kicked off, and I was in Puerto Rico when that happened. And it's funny. My anniversary, I got married in 1999, September 11th.
Wow.
So when September 11th happened, I was on 24-hour duty from the 10th to the 11th. So on September 11th at midnight, I called up my wife and I said, hey, I'm on duty, so I get off at 7 o'clock in the morning. I just want to wish you a happy anniversary, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to get off duty. I'm going to crash. I've been up for 24 hours. She's like, okay, I understand. Everything's cool. I'm deployed. And next thing you know, I get off at 7 o'clock, 9:01, 9:02, 9, whatever. They're crashing planes into the World Trade Center. They're waking me up. They're like, hey, you got to check on your family. I'm like, oh, my family's, what are you talking about? They're blowing up New York. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then one of my buddies, Daryl, came in and he was just like grabbed me out of my bed. He was just like, look, man, you need to come look at this. And come downstairs, and they kept showing it. Boom, boom. I was just like, what the heck? But my family's about an hour away from there, so they're outside the city. My grandmother was, she lived in Manhattan at the time. She lived not even Manhattan, that part of Manhattan, but Spanish Harlem, which is on the island of Manhattan, but nowhere near that. So none of my family was really affected. It was just the shock of, wow, it's happening.
It would also happen to your home state.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That was, the more shocking thing. And of course, some friends that were NYPD and FDNY. Um, some came home pretty battered up and stuff like that, you know. But
So did you experience like a mindset shift in the military, seeing being in before that, and then also being in after that?
yes, definitely. We were in Puerto Rico. We were at Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico at the time. Um, and Rosie Roads is probably as lax as you can get for a military installation. It was being closed down at the time. Um, Everything was being moved out, and then you can come and go on that base. Like there was no gate guard or anything like that there. You could just drive on the base, go do whatever you want, and drive off the base like nothing. Um, 9/11 happened. 50 cows at the gate. You know, um, 50 cows at the gate. MPs at the gate. Day one. By the end of that week, there were makeshift, sandbags being built up into little fighting positions at the gate. I saw an A1 Abrams at the main gate. So the mindset changed quick. Um, and of course, everywhere else and every other base as well, started closing bases and threat levels started going up, and um, people started taking training seriously at that point. Because we're definitely going to war after that.
I mean, how did you? I mean, so you switched from being a mortarman to a boat mechanic. Is that the right
I guess you would say boat driver.
boat driver?
Yeah.
Were you kind of like, oh, I'm really glad that I was able to switch my job before this happened, or were you a little upset, like, oh man, now was the time where mortarmen or
Um, I had mixed feelings about it. By the time 9/11 came around, my second kid was coming around. I definitely wanted to, do my part. Um, being in infantry and being over in transportation. Next thing you know, when these guys are going to the range for Mark 19, they go into the range for 203, they go into the range for 50 cal. You know, me and maybe in my unit, maybe 4, maybe 5 other infantry guys are sitting there like, hey, look, this is how you do headspace and timing. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. We're at the range with these guys, and we're E4s and E5s, showing E7s how to, they saw it years ago, and they were like, well, in the infantry we do this all the time. We're doing live fire, convoy live fires all the time. We're doing this, we're doing that, and all that training was coming into play. So I have mixed feelings about it. Like, I'm glad I was there. Some of those guys may not have made it home from wherever they were at. But then I didn't get the full, what I came in to do originally. But family changes that, and goals change and stuff like that. So
did you meet your wife through the military, or did you know her beforehand?
Actually, no. I knew my wife from. She lived a couple towns over from where I lived, but we've known each other since we were 16 years old. Yeah. So we've known each other for a very long time, and so it's very easy to make that change. My career change. For her and for the kids and stuff like that. Get myself out of harm's way, and so I really didn't plan on staying in to do 20 years. So it's like, well, I get this, reclass, get this next job, and then I can get out, and I'll have a job on the outside. And that didn't work out too well. I ended up staying in, and because when I extended to go down to Tampa, Florida, and ended up become a part of a multi-compo unit where they put active, reserve, and they put us all together into one unit, 824th Transportation Company. they put us all together in one unit in Tampa, and then we left Fort Eustis, got PCS down to Tampa, Florida, just to come back 2-3 months later, back to the same exact place that they PCS'd us from. Because they took the active duty unit and they sent them to Kuwait, and then we came up as the reserves and National Guard, reserves and AGR, Active Guard Reserve, and then we had all three components in one unit. So there was like maybe 15, 20 of us active duty. Then they had maybe 10 to 12, maybe 10 to 20 AGR, and then the rest of the unit was reserve. And we would get those guys ready to come take the active duty portion mission over of doing the trade winds and USARSO and the Caribbean missions and stuff like that, while the active duty opponent went to Kuwait and offloaded the big ships, offloading tanks and stuff like that, and getting a theater prepped. And then,
So is that where you went? Was Kuwait or?
No, I went to. We were pretty much with the reserve unit, taking over the active duty components mission before the war started.
Oh, okay.
So they brought the reserves up, and so we stayed with them to maintain that. I guess that part made money for the military. I don't know, but they kept that mission going, trade winds and USARSO missions. It's all throughout the Caribbean. We do a bunch of stuff down there, from South America, Caribbean islands, Florida. Bring cargo, support whoever's down there. We've done so much down there. Support the Coast Guard and drug seizures, supporting 7th Group in South America operations. Bringing them equipment for their training or whatever the case may be, to whatever.
So were you assisting in some of like the drug busts or?
Yeah, we would. We had the easiest part ever. We would load their fast boats up, and then we would take them out, and then if they would see something, they would go and they would seize it, and basically we fished while they went and seized drugs and stuff. So a lot of fishing, and I don't eat fish, but fishing, tanning, and 12-ounce curls.
A lot better than humping that base plate around, I bet.
Yes, definitely. Then I got over to Fort Story. I left that mission that ended, and I ended up in Fort Story, Virginia Beach, and then we had gotten orders to go to Iraq. And we were doing. When we got over to Iraq, we were doing a lot of stuff for the convoy guys. Intel, tracking movements, MTC, pretty much, movement transportation control, movement control, MCT, movement control team, MCT, yeah, pretty much did an MCT job in Baghdad, and so I was in Buyout, Baghdad International Airport, and
so was that pretty much like command center work where you were getting the intel, or were you actually?
No, we were the ones sending the guys out. They would come to us, and then we would set up their convoys, and we would set up. We would gather their intel. We'd give them their briefings and stuff like that. Their command was responsible for anything else. Basically, we controlled whether if the roads were black, we let them go. If the roads were green, we keep them in. Roads were black, we keep them in. If roads were green, we'll let them go.
So how did you get that intel? Did you have were you paying locals for information, or did you have satellites that was?
Very. We had a lot of sources of intel, and then we were probably fourth down on a tier. So we had an eye in the sky, which was always like 5 minutes behind us. Like you see everything, you're the first one to see it, but you're 5 minutes behind because it's going through all these other channels. Um, it was kind of weird, but Eye in the Sky, and then other MCTs that are sending out their convoys out, um, up and down Route Tampa, or Route Irish, or going out west, or Ramadi, whatever the case may be. You know, keeping radio comms, and then we had a lot of the. While we were there, they had our convoys had like a little laptop in there. It was kind of like Facebook Messenger. You can talk to each other and stuff like that, and send out.
What was it? Did you have a Blue Force tracker?
Yeah, Blue Force tracker and stuff like that. Yeah, different things like that. So that they can talk to each other, and then we have somebody monitoring that. We have somebody monitoring the Eye in the Sky. We got other people monitoring other things, and then we gather the intel, and then worked with the KBR for the recovery. Whenever the convoys would get hit, somebody's got to go out there and recover that vehicle and stuff like that. So
were you getting a lot of time outside of the airport, like out doing missions, or were you mainly kind of in the intelligence room?
Just mainly in the talk. It was simple stuff. It was simple work. We were a small team, 16.
Well, it's simple but important.
Yeah, it was just a simple job. Nothing to write home to mom about, But we got to see a lot of stuff because these convoys, they came in straight to us, so we got to hold a couple hands and stuff like that. When they come in, take care of them, and guys coming in banged up, whatever the case may be. Always came straight to us. They had 20, 30 other trucks with them that they had to deliver.
So how long were you in Iraq?
We spent 1 year there. We did our training up. Yeah, I spent 1 year in Iraq. And then I came home. Just 9 days after I get home, I got hit by a car and ripped my leg off.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's how I lost my leg. 9 days home from Iraq.
I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I was pissed. Yeah.
It wasn't a hit and run, was it? The person at least.
No, the guy literally crashed into us. I was changing a flat tire on the Jersey Turnpike, and the guy, we were on the left-hand shoulder, so the guy hit the Jersey barrier, slid right past my buddy, and clipped my leg, ripped my leg off. They reattached it and stuff like that, but and then so I did about 2 years, 20 months, 21 surgeries. Try to do limb salvage, and then I woke up in the ICU one day and I was just like, I'm tired of being Mr. Potato Head. They took veins from my arm, veins from my leg, bone from my hip, pieces from everywhere, just put my leg back together, and it just wouldn't heal. Just cut it off.
Were you getting military doctors, or were you seeing civilian?
Military doctors. At first I was in Robert Wood Johnson. I was at a civilian hospital. Then they sent me down to Portsmouth Naval Hospital in Virginia. Stayed there. Then I had my amputation in Portsmouth, and from there I did a little bit of rehab so I can get up and walk. And then I went to Walter Reed. So my amputation was in 2008. Yeah, May of 2008, May 15th of 2008. I got hit by the car November 13th. It's my alive day. Yeah, I was pissed that day. I cursed that guy out. So he's Canadian, so he spoke French. I remember the cop being there, and he's like, my buddy's sitting there, and he's like, I'm cursing this guy out. I'm like, you beep 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 beep, and I guess I was kind of like in and out. But when I saw this guy walking, I'm like, hey, who the heck is that? And he's like, hey, that's the guy who hit you. And If that guy wouldn't have walked over, I don't know. My femoral artery was compromised. I was bleeding out. But give me a breath of fresh air to curse that guy out. Give me another 5 minutes. Um, and my buddy Obi, he's like, yeah. When you started yelling at that guy, I told the cop that you'll be fine. You're always like that. It's like, oh, you're an idiot. But
So, was there anything that you kind of did that helped you get through that, like kind of mentally, outside of physical therapy or
dude, the accident part or
well, kind of the accident part, but then also the coming back from Iraq and then happening 9 days afterwards, and I mean,
that was a really big mind fuck. For lack of better terms, there's no other. I mean, it was just. I just got home from war. Going to Bosnia, going different places, being in different combat zones. The one time I'm in a combat zone where I don't have to fire a weapon or do anything, I come home. I'm like, I'm home, I'm safe. My whole team went. My whole team came back. No bumps, no bruises, no nothing on anybody. We're good. Missing a limb. That really screwed me up. It took me a while to mentally get past that. But then once I got my amputation, I was just focused at that point. I'm like, all right, I had been to Walter Reed, seen other amputees progressing and, going back to active duty. So I was just like, all right, they can do it. I can do it.
did they let you go back?
Yeah, I stayed in.
Wow.
I stayed in till 2012, and late. I'm sorry, yeah, 2012, and then I retired. I was so stubborn. I was just like, there's no way I was gonna let a car accident take me out of my career.
Did you hit the 20-year mark, or did you get medically retired?
Medically retired at 15.
Okay.
At that point, I was when I hit 15, I was just like, all right, I'm done. My body couldn't take no more, but.
Were you still a boat driver when you came back?
At that point, no. I was going to becoming a medic, and I would have went back to the boats as a medic. And at that time, I was at the WTU, and I was training. It's 2010. Yeah, I was training for the inaugural Warrior Games. So I did 4 events, and I think that's what helped me out to get to like where I am now. Because I had gained a lot of weight. As you can see, I haven't lost most of it, but I learned how to use it, how to control it. I eat what I want. But training for the Warrior Games, and May 2010, came home with a silver medal, seated volleyball, swam, cycled. Did so much. I was probably swimming about 2.5 miles a day, cycling between 5.
So staying active.
Yeah,
Really?
5 to 7 miles a day. Yeah, on a hand cycle. I was staying really active, and then I was still active duty, WTU, and then I started working at the training lifeguards. I was swimming so much, it was just a shoe-in, and I was waiting for a medic class, and training lifeguards and lifeguarding and waiting for a class, and then I got a job with the Red Cross.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? I think I'll retire. And started working with the Red Cross after that.
What did you do for the Red Cross? Or was that the lifeguard training, or was it the military?
I was doing the lifeguard training for them at first, and then being CLS, combat lifesaver, stuff like that. Medical training out the yin yang from every doggone deployment. They send us every class they can put us in. I ended up teaching first aid, CPR, pet CPR, outdoors.
Pet CPR. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, there is a such thing. Lifeguarding, babysitting classes, anything with a Red Cross logo. I ended up getting certified to teach it. Um, so I ended up doing that. So the Army was kind of like my second job compared to the Red Cross, and then that's what prompted me to put in my retirement packet. And plus, my body was just hurting. You know, boots all day on a prosthetic limb, it's not fun. You know, being above knee, below knee, I think I probably would have stayed in 20, but not as above knee. It's too much on the back and your hip. It's brutal.
So are you still working with the Red Cross, or?
Yes, I teach for James City County. I teach Red Cross classes. I teach Red Cross classes for the county, James City County in Virginia. Whether they want lifeguarding, CPR, first aid, or something like that.
I heard they got rid of the breaths. I mean, I used to be an EMT before I went in, and when I got trained, it was 2 breaths for 30 compressions. Now here it's just compressions.
Yeah, they still keep it. It's still taught. 30 and 2, the ratio 30 and 2. But for an adult, they don't suggest the breaths. I guess with a child, yes, and that's where it went because all our systems are separated. Vascular system, respiratory system, stuff like that. Now, as adults, everything's separated. As a child, it's all together. So that's why before you do if you ever did CPR on a kid, they tell you to do 2 breaths before you start doing any compressions on a child. Versus an adult, you do the compressions in 2 breaths.
I don't think they defined that during my training.
No, you do the 2 breaths whenever there's anything that has to do with if they're not breathing and stuff like that, because it's the respiratory system and everything is still connected. So you do 2 breaths to kind of jumpstart everything, and then you do the compressions. Versus an adult, everything's separated. So if the heart's not beating, it has nothing to do with the lungs or anything else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
So I only have a couple more questions for you. Well, what are some life lessons you feel you've learned from the military?
Oh my gosh, what haven't I learned from the military? Most of my adult career has been military. I've learned what not to do. I learned finances, how to take care of myself, how to be independent was the biggest thing I learned from the military. Give me direction, and I'll make sure it happens. Whether it be work. I'm at work. You don't have to explain anything to me. Just tell me this is what I need done. I don't need to know how you're gonna do it. Just tell me what you need done. I'm gonna do it. So being independent, being self-motivated, probably one of the 2 biggest things that I've taken from the military, and then of course being disciplined enough to finish what you start. The biggest things that I've taken from the military, and those are things I absolutely, positively, without a shadow of doubt, had 0% of that when I came into the military. 0. So.
And then, how has your military experience affected your thoughts about war and the military in general?
Wow.
Yeah, these are the deep questions.
Yeah. War is a necessary evil, and it always has been. It always will. And there is no change in that. I don't care, who is our leader. From the softest to the hardest president, or our hardest leaders, or softest leaders, whatever the case may be. War is going to happen. It's going to take longer in some instances than it is on other instances. Somebody's eventually going to get fed up and do something that's going to cause somebody else to react. Whether it's just, bombing or sending troops over or going to full-out war. It's going to happen. It's always going to happen. People, we're just programmed to do that. So seeing that, all over the world, that's one common denominator from being, all over the world and seeing some carnage. That's always the one denominator that has always been common. Just it's gonna happen, whether you, no matter what you do to stop it, somebody is gonna get fed up. And there was towns that they had no ammo and they just used machetes instead of ammunition. They were low on ammunition, so just use machetes. Just seeing the ugly parts of life. Seeing 400 or 500 people in a mass grave. It opens your eyes to it's an ugly world. So having somebody to keep that blanket of peace over you, you may take it for granted, but if you see some of the things that's out there, you think twice about what your actual core beliefs are on war and stuff like that, and trying to keep peace. So it's kind of hard. That was a hard question.
Yeah, some of these gonna get that one. The other two are kind of or a little better. Is there anything you feel like we should add to this interview or that we haven't discussed?
No, I think I've absolutely enough.
Then this one's my favorite question. What message would you like to leave for future generations who review this interview?
Oh man.
Let's save the hardest one for last.
Yeah. Wow, this is my time to leave an impression on somebody. No matter what you do, never let them see you sweat. And if you want something, go for it. And nothing is ever going to come to you for free. And one of the things I can ever think of that I would ever tell my own kids or tell anybody that was important to me, those key things, you can mark on those. I think you'll be successful in life and anything else you do. So that's all I got.
Well, this concludes our interview. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do this interview, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, man.